Teachers of Reddit, what was the biggest student meltdown you ever witnessed? I once had a student who was using a laser pointer during class presentations that day, and after his group was finished, he was of course the normal freshman and decided to shine it around the room. But before I was able to tell him to cut it out, he managed to shine it in another student's direction. The student who had the laser pointed at him exploded. He flipped his desk screaming a string of profanities before punching my cinder block wall, shattering his hand. He then stormed out of my classroom before I was able to address the situation, get him some help for his hand. GF. Oh my gosh. I definitely didn't interpret exploded as an emotional outburst as much as literal combustion. I had a first grader that was hot. We did not have air conditioning, so he stood up, knocking over his chair. That wasn't enough, so he threw the chair, then walked to my desk and cleared it off with a swipe of his arm. After that, he pushed the intercom button calling the office, and before they could answer he stepped into the hall to sit down to wait for the principal. Once the principal arrived to take him to the air-conditioned office, the student bit the principal on the arm. We heard the hollering as we were trying to clean up. He was suspended for 3 days and got to stay home in his air-conditioned apartment. I had a first grader that was hot. You're now on a list. Taught special ed. Had a kid throw a chair through the window, break it, jump through window and run away. Man, I do not miss teaching. Not me, but a teacher friend of mine was proctoring sats when one kid flips his desk and screams "Frick you Daniel" and storms out. Turns out Daniel had been ripping his own pubes out of his junk and putting them on the kid's shoulder in front of him. When the kid in front of him found out, he obviously flipped out. And for the record, yes, Daniel is a fake name. To be fair, I would probably act the same way, knowing that some C is putting his sweaty nut hair on me. We were meeting in the computer lab for a week because the students were working on projects. One of my students was hanging out with his girlfriend before class started. I was in the classroom, so I wasn't paying any attention to the conversation. He walks into the room and he was fuming. I asked him what was wrong and he didn't respond. He went to his computer and punched the screen. I tried to calm him down and he picked up the table, which had 5 computers on it, and tipped it over. I got the rest of the students out and called security. He absolutely destroyed the computer lab. He was suspended for the rest of the year, was banned from prom and graduation, and his parents had to pay for the damages. His girlfriend apparently cheated on him. I heard they got back together after that, but it was never confirmed. Back in my day, if a kid punched a computer screen, he would end up with a set of broken knuckles. I taught English in Korea to middle and high school students. I like to walk up and down the aisles between the desks occasionally during class just to make sure that everybody is paying attention and not using their phones. One day during a 7th grade class, I walked to the very last row and looked down. I see a nice girl, completely average in every way, using an X-Acto knife to carve up her arms. Both arms were bleeding profusely and had about 30 horizontal cuts up to her elbows. She tried to cover them up, but I walked up on her too quickly. I grabbed the assistant teacher and whispered to her what was going on without any of the other students noticing, and she took the girl to the nurse. Not an overt meltdown, but something was wrong there. Dang. When you get to the point you'll do it in public at risk of being caught, things are going pretty badly. Hope she got the help she needed, but I don't know how mental illnesses are treated there. I'm a teacher in a prison. They were doing Mavis Beacon teachers typing and one inmate kept putting his hands on the wrong keys, to which he freaks out and starts yelling at the computer how it's a dumb mother. Mavis Beacon is a dumb mother sucker. I type how I want. We had a girl in our school with Down syndrome who was a tiny shrimp of a thing. Skinny, short, and fast. Her appointed aides were older and not in the best shape, so she gave them a run for their money. Often, the kiddos in her classroom come down to take care of recycling and such every day in all the hallways. And one day she must have been pretty mad at her aide, because she gave her a good long side eye, and then took off for the exit doors in our wing. I'm a regular ed English teacher, who was just on my way to make copies, and saw her sprint away toward the doors. I literally knelt down, hooked her around the waist. She was looking back at her aide, smiling, and basically hugged her into a stop, saying, "I don't think you're supposed to go out those doors." Her aides laughed and laughed, and she just looked at me, horrified that I dare impede her break from freedom. Repeat this scenario about 8 or 9 times over 2 years, I think I hooked that kid in a dead sprint more often than anyone else. When I retire, I want to come back and work with these kids. They're a hoot. I've gotten pretty good at snagging kids on the run. The fun part about working with the under 5 crowd is they don't know you can anticipate their moves. I teach English in Japan and I worked in some elementary schools for a few years. In one class this one kid just wouldn't keep quiet. Kept talking in a loud voice to the kid next to him no matter how many times I asked him to be quiet and pay attention. I got frustrated and told him off, saying that even if he didn't want to learn he was screwing it up for everyone else and to either be quiet or get out. All in Japanese of course. Just to note, kids are almost never kicked out of class in Japan as far as I'm aware because people have the right to education by law here. The kid flipped out and started yelling at me. I can't remember everything he said but the highlight would translate as approximately "die you freaking pervert," and this was coming from a 4th grader. Then he buggered off somewhere. I'm not a teacher but I was assisting a teacher because I'm a student aide, and one of the students started arguing with the teacher and he threw his desk down hard and started calling the teacher a godless W. I told him to calm down and he punched me in the face and then stormed out of the classroom. He was expelled due to that being his 3rd disturbance and I got a black eye. Godless W. That's an interesting insult. In 8th grade, 13 years old, a military kid who had only been at our school for the year was moving again. He had severe anger issues and was seen as kind of weird. On our last field trip he stood up, said this long-winded speech and then proceeded to tell all the teachers and some of the kids to frick off. It was hilarious sad. This happened 10 years ago, when I worked as a primary school teacher. I was teaching year 2, 8ish year olds. At the time, one student stood out. He was a very bright kid, could do mental arithmetic as quickly as me if not faster, but he was also extremely weird. No eye contact, did odd repetitive stuff by himself at recess like timing his sprints across a certain section of playground over and over. He had a few less odd friends who tolerated him, but he was mostly bullied for being so strange. He usually reacted stoically or defensively, but one day he absolutely snapped. At recess, he was being teased by a popular girl for reading so much, and she dared him to punch her when he got upset. Apparently today was the day because he did, more than once, all directly to the stomach. Probably 5-6 good kid-sized blows before I reached them and he snapped out of it and stopped. He got put through the ringer for that as most teachers disliked him as well. I tried to explain he was constantly bullied and usually non-violent. It got taken into consideration and he was still suspended for a week. From the kid's point of view, totally worth it. Beating up a bully a sign of deterrence for a week of suspension. Man, I would have paid to stay at home as a result of breaking rules, but my school system does not suspend students at all. I teach middle school and have witnessed many meltdowns. A favorite was a new girl in my class. She threw one of my calculators across the room, so I told her to go to the office. She went out yelling, swearing, and I just stood there non-reactive. Then she went to slam the door on her way out, or at least she tried. Can't slam a safety door. Self closer. Couldn't help but have a laugh at that. There was a girl in my high school who tried that multiple times. She would have an argument with her boyfriend in class, then try to storm out and slam the door for dramatic effect. At first usually tried not to escalate the situation by laughing, but it became a running joke. A kid in my high school told our English teacher that he was going to bring a gun to school and shoot everyone but her, so she had to live with the guilt that everyone died because of her. That was fun. IDK if this counts, but I tutor at this girl's house. She's in her early teens, and there was this point in helping her with her homework where she made a mistake in pen and needed whiteout. Neither her nor her mom could find it, and it ended with the child yelling, "I have OCD, mom. I can't go on without whiteout. I am having an OCD attack. Why do you always do this to Emmy?" "No, I swear I have OCD. What the heck?" To be fair though, I have OCD, and while I wouldn't have an outburst like this, if I can't treat an obsession, the result is usually a full-blown panic attack. The kid could be literally crying for help and nobody would take any notice because kids lie. Kids want attention. I worked in a really rough school and have tons of stories. One third grader didn't want to line up for the water fountain after a hot recess. He wanted to jump the line and get his water first. Well, my colleague tells him to get to the back of the line BC no cutting, and the little sucker picked up a chair, whipped it at my friend and shattered the glass in the classroom door. Kid didn't even flinch or act like he felt like he was in it or anything. 2 more. This one is funny. I was teaching science to the 5th graders. I am white, so my students, 98% African American, loved it when I would flush red with exercise, embarrassment, or even from something rubbing my neck, like a seat belt, and leaving a red mark. The kids were fascinated by my ability to be red. Anyway, teaching science, kid raises his hand, and completely off topic goes, "Hey, Miss So-and-so, are you a virgin?" Well, you can imagine I was so shocked, and immediately turned bright red, so then the whole class starts laughing. It was pretty funny, so I laughed too. Little crap. Last one. Huge girl, 12 years old, 160 pounds, 5 feet 9 in my 5th grade class. This chick was 100% developed and matured. Another girl 5th grader 4 feet 4, 55 pounds maximum. Not even close to puberty. These two get in a fist fight right before lunch. Obvious the big girl is murdering the smaller one. There is a policy about not getting involved, but big girl was starting to slam little girl's head into the metal lockers. So I felt I had to intervene. I grab little girl by the waist and pull her out of big girl's reach and place her to the side. Big girl comes at me like a raging bull. She punched me square in my mouth. Hurt like heck. Busted my lip a little. The whole class is like ooh ooh. In the quiet I said to her, "Stop. Do you realize you've just hit a teacher?" She just jumped at me and ripped a good sized chunk of my hair out. No joke. She got suspended for a couple of days, but that's it. They asked if I wanted to press charges, but I was scared to be a white teacher pressing charges against a 12-year-old girl in that neighborhood. She was removed from my class at my request though. In 7th grade in gym class we were playing floor hockey. This one kid, Jack, was having a rough game. A different kid who played hockey tried to jump the ball over Jack but hit him in the forehead, so he freaked out and started slashing at people's ankles. The gym teachers finally started to call out his name to get him to sit out. The catch is that one of the teachers was calling him Jake instead of Jack. Cue the meltdown. He whips the hockey stick at the teachers, nearly hitting one of them, and yells, "My name isn't Jake," and begins to cry. He finally calmed down and the gym teachers had a chance to talk to him. Pretty sure he got a detention for it. That was one of the more interesting days of that year. Serious my name's not Rick moment. It was my first year teaching out of college and it wasn't the safest of schools. It was my French 1 class with almost 40 students. I had a student throw a desk in my general direction because of frustration from another student. You know crap gets real when furniture starts flying in your direction. +1 level if it has your name on it. You have been visited by the Supreme Wiener Puppers. You will be blessed with delicious sausages for 7 years, but only if you comment, "Nice Wiener Puppers." If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.